Did you ever want to know what exactly an Ocarina of Time Randomizer is? In this video, we'll take a high-level overview on what ZOOTR is and what the differences are between it and the base game. The information we'll be giving pertains to the Season 5 standard rules and settings. The basis of Randomizer is taking all of the unique items from chests, non-playable characters, minigames, and freestanding item locations and shuffling them amongst each other. This means that the Kokiri sword chest in Kokiri Forest may end up being a bow instead, or perhaps the heart piece in the spinning Goron pottery is the megaton hammer. Songs have also been shuffled amongst themselves in their own separate pool, so you could end up getting Saria's song from Sheik in Desert Colossus. Finally, the dungeon rewards, which include the 3 spiritual stones and the 6 medallions, are randomized between the dungeon bosses. This means that your fire medallion might be guarded by King Dodongo rather than its normal location behind Volvagia. Aside from a few small changes, this is the same Hyrule you've experienced in classic Ocarina of Time. ZOOTR takes all of the best aspects of the original version and strengthens them to their fullest potential. In a way, you can look at every seed as its own complete puzzle. Each time through, you'll be challenged to complete the game in a different way, with different logic dictating how you'll move through the game's iconic locales. We'll break down what that means in detail, but let's begin by discussing the goals of a standard ZOOTR. In standard settings, your ultimate goal is gaining access to Ganon's tower and beating Ganondorf. To do this, you'll need to gather the 6 medallions by completing the randomized dungeons they've been assigned to. The dungeons you'll need to complete will change seed to seed, and it's likely you won't need to finish all of them. This is because the 3 spiritual stones are not inherently required to gain access to Ganon's tower. Gathering the 3 stones gives you access to the Song of Time cutscene, which rewards you with a song. For seeds where this song is one that's needed to progress, all 8 dungeons must be finished in their entirety. Fortunately, you won't need to guess. The altar in the Temple of Time will tell you which reward corresponds to which dungeon. This information will help you decide how you want to approach finishing the seed in an efficient way. Once you're in Ganon's tower, you'll need to make sure you have the items necessary in order to beat Ganon. The light arrows are required in order to damage Ganondorf, and you'll need both a bow and magic meter in order to fire them. Ganondorf will always tell you the location of the light arrows at the beginning of his fight, so don't worry if you haven't found them over the course of your adventure. After completing both phases of the final boss fight to trigger the final cutscenes, you'll officially have finished the seed. Moving on to some more specific randomizer rules, the standard settings involve having the Door of Time always open. This means that at any time, you can access the Master Sword pedestal and change from child to adult or adult to child. You are also allowed to freely leave and enter Kokiri Forest without beating the Deku Tree. If you wanted to, you could start your game as Child Link in Kokiri Forest and run straight to the Temple of Time to become an adult. Expect to shift between the 2 ages multiple times as you explore Hyrule. Each seed begins with a free dungeon reward that represents the light medallion you normally get in classic Ocarina of Time after becoming an adult. Similarly, you start with a free song that changes every seed. This is because the standard ZOOTR seed skips the Hyrule Castle stealth sequence that normally gives you Zelda's Lullaby. There are many randomizer-specific terms you'll hear over the course of these videos, and one of the most important ones is checks. A check refers to any chests, non-playable characters, minigames, freestanding locations, or song locations that give you an item or song. Because these have all been randomized, we are checking to see what these areas hold, hence the term. Much of learning ZOOTR is understanding where these checks are and how to access them. At the beginning of the seed, there are very few available checks with your limited equipment. As time goes on and you gather more and more items, more and more checks become accessible. In many cases, you'll need to visit a region multiple times in order to fully clear it. The current standard settings utilize a helpful feature called chest size matches contents. In layman's terms, this means that key items such as the hookshot, bomb bag, or tunics are found in large chests, while consumables such as rupees, deku nuts, or arrows are found in small chests. Inside the dungeons, keys are found in small blue patterned chests, while boss keys are found in large blue patterned chests. With this in mind, even if you can't access a larger chest right away, you'll know when to go back for it when you can. As varied as ZOOTR can be, there's always a guiding mechanic behind each seed's generation. This set of invisible rules is known as logic, and understanding it is an important step to improving your performance. The first principle of logic is that in a standard seed, every check is eventually accessible. As a result, every seed is completable without the use of major glitches. While a couple certain glitches are allowed, they typically are only those that save time in puzzles, and not those that drastically change the game. In order to ensure that every seed can be fully completed, certain dungeons have been altered to ensure that you cannot be soft-locked at any point. If you find yourself missing keys in a dungeon, you may need another item in order to progress further. The second principle of logic is a bit more abstract. When a seed is generated, the randomizer places items in the world and ensures a path exists through the seed. Finding the items early on in this path will allow you to access more checks, which will eventually lead to the items further along this path. It is important to recognize what checks you have available to you each time you find a new item or song. Certain areas of the game are opened up when you find progression items, so consider where you might need to go next. Each item is like another piece of the puzzle. Following the logical path may seem daunting, but you're not going alone. The gossip stones are no longer simply there for backstory. Instead, talking to one will give you an important hint about the seed's logic. And don't worry, you won't need the Mask of Truth this time. Hints in ZOOTR are incredibly powerful, and how you interpret them is crucial to finding your way through the seed in an efficient manner. The Path of and Foolish Hint categories are especially vital. Path of hints state that a certain region contains an item or a song that logically leads to the completion of a specific dungeon. For example, you may find one that says, Kokiri Forest is on the path to King Dodongo. Foolish hints simply means that the region contains no items necessary to progress to the seed. If a region is foolish, you won't need to do any of the checks there. Another important category of hints are the always hints, which are present in every seed. These hints reveal the contents of particularly challenging checks. For example, the time-consuming 50 skulls reward. The sometimes hints are similar, though they change every seed. These checks aren't quite as demanding of the player, but are still useful to receive. And with that, we've reached the end of our overview. If it seemed like a lot, don't worry. The beauty of ZOOTR is that it can be enjoyed in any way you'd like. ZOOTR highlights the strengths of Ocarina of Time in ways you've never experienced. Every time you generate a seed, you can expect to be challenged to think of new uses for Link's equipment. You'll be amazed at just how many different ways there are to move through the same regions. And more than anything, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for this classic masterpiece.